Jerk Routes Football. Smash that like button.
Welcome to Jerk Routes. Today's tutorial, we're going to talk about the cover 2 defense as both a coverage system and as a full defense. Now, a little bit of background. My teammate Mike and I, we've been playing Madden for a really long time. And we play a little differently, I think, than most players. And that is that we play local co-op. And by local co-op, I mean we actually go to each other's house. We play on a single console, a single screen, 2 controllers, 2 recliners, and we play together on the same team. We play offense and we play defense. We play cover 2 because it allows us to both take about the same responsibility and about the same opportunities to make plays in a game. And we play the safeties. We play free safety and strong safety. Mike being the free safety, me generally playing the strong safety. Now, cover 2 as a concept, 2 different things. You've got the cover 2 coverage concept, which is, you see it on the screen here, the cover 2 that's in the middle of the screen, represented by the 2 X's that are the deepest part of the screen. They are the blue coverage bubbles, and cover 2 in this way refers to 2 players that are taking each half the deep part of the field. Their main responsibility is no one gets deeper than them, and they play the ball in the air when it comes in their direction, and then they help each other once the ball is out of the quarterback's hands. Then you have the Tampa 2. People refer to it as the Tampa 2, and that's an entirely different thing. It's a defensive system based on the cover 2. Generally, you're going to play cover 2 out of a 4-3 shell, 4 defensive linemen, 3 linebackers. You could play cover 2 out of 3-4. Teams do it from time to time, but realize that when you go to the 3-4, you've got more stout linemen, so less pass rush. You're relying on your outside linebackers to actually get pressure, and so you've got less coverage players. So teams are generally going to prefer that 4-3 defense. And when we talk about Tampa 2, it's definitely a 4-3 defense. You'll see in the middle of the screen there where you've got 4 defensive linemen that are all going straight up the field. Then you've got your 3 linebackers. They have nicknames. The middle linebacker being the Mike, literally M for Mike, middle. The outside linebacker who's on the strong side being the Sam. You'll hear us refer to him as the Sam. Literally strong side S, Sam. And then the weak side linebacker, which is the Will. Literally weak side Will. It's as simple as that. That's how they refer to them. And then you have the 2 corners that play varying different coverages under that cover 2 shell. But the main concept is that cover 2 shell. Now, in the Tampa 2, one of the most important players, and the player that really makes it go, is the middle linebacker. There are 4 teams that I recognize over the years that played that Tampa 2 system really, really well, and they all did it because they had middle linebackers who were versatile, who were fast, who could cover, and who could make plays. And those 4 teams being the Tampa Bay Buccaneers of the 90s. Hardy Nickerson was very, very good in that role. The Bears of the 90s and then into the early 2000s. Brian Urlacher is probably the best cover 2 linebacker that I've ever seen. The Ravens of the late 90s, early 2000s, Ray Lewis playing middle linebacker in that cover 2, though they did it a little bit differently than the Bucs and the Bears did. And then the Miami Dolphins of the 90s and the 2000s with Zach Thomas playing that middle linebacker. They did it a little more similar to the Ravens because they were using larger defensive linemen inside to occupy blocks and allow their linebackers to run sideline to sideline, while the Tampa Bucs and the Bears of that era, they were using penetrating defensive linemen like Warren Sapp, and they were doing that to get pass rush and then working off of that. So you have to have that middle linebacker who's going to be able to run down the seam, who's going to be able to cover people, because the weakness in the cover 2 is the space between the 2 safeties. Each of the safeties has a deep half of the field, and with a deep half of the field, you've got responsibility all the way to the boundary, from the basically hash marks to the boundary on both sides. That leaves a spot between the hash marks in the middle of the field. You can see it represented right now in the background that's moving around. But those hash marks, that's called the seam. and the seam is where you're weak in a cover two, you can make up for that with a very athletic, very physical middle linebacker who can run, who can cover, who can hit, really a guy who can do a lot of different things. And so out of the cover two system, you don't always play cover two. When you're in a cover two shell, you're playing cover two, but sometimes you play other types of coverage out of the cover two system just so you don't become predictable. They're represented here under the concept tab. Cover one being a single player who's got the entire deep part of the field is his responsibility. On this particular concept, on this particular play, cover one, it's the free safety that's going to be dropping back. The middle linebacker is shifted slightly over to one side, to the Sam side, and then he's also going to have a coverage responsibility on the seam, and then everybody else is in a man coverage, right? You see these, the people who don't have zones here, that would be both corners, the strong safety, and both of the outside linebackers do not have zone, or do not have man coverage. They're all in zones on that particular play. This is the cover two shell. That's the bulk of the defense. There's cover two man, which is the same coverage concept, except you're going to play man coverage underneath it. So all of these players are going to have a man responsibility if they're not rushing the passer. You also can play cover three out of the Tampa 2. Cover three, the concept is that there are three players that are going to split the deep side of the field. They're going to take thirds of the field. That's why it's cover three, because there are three players. This particular concept has a ton of players underneath who are playing zone. Cover four is even a more conservative type of pass defense. You're expecting a lot of passing in cover four, so you've got four players that are taking a fourth of the field each. You'll see this expressed in quarters sometimes. Generally, you're going to play zones under it, but there's nothing saying you have to. You could play cover four and then play a bunch of coverage under it with man coverage, but you are going to be short on man coverage players because you've got so many players taking deep parts of the field. This works, though, when the offense has to be aggressive, either because of down and distance, time, or the score. And then cover six is a rarely used. Cover six is rarely used because you are just playing zones all over the place. This cover six here is expressed really in terms of three really deep players, three moderately deep players, and then players that kind of have the flat. You see the right corner has the flat, and what looks to be the strong side linebacker actually has the flat too. There are some blitz concepts that come out of it. This is a zone blitz with two deep. When you hear the term zone blitz, generally what that means is a player who's normally going to be who's normally rushing the passer is going to drop into coverage, and he's going to be replaced by a player that would normally be in coverage. This is specifically designed to influence the quarterback, to make him read what he thinks is a guy who is coming, but he's actually dropping into a zone. A lot of times you can be very successful dropping a guy under a slant because if the quarterback's first read is that slant, when he's being pressured and you drop a guy under it that he doesn't expect to go there, you can produce some turnovers that way. You see this has a cover two shell. Both of the safeties are cover two over the top, but the middle linebacker's actually coming. No one's actually it doesn't look like any of the defensive linemen are actually dropping, so I'm not quite sure why this is considered a zone blitz. This is the zone blitz three deep. So now you've got three deep players in coverage, but you've got pressure coming from a lot of places that you don't normally see it, hopefully to confuse the quarterback. The three deep players are going to be the strong safety has the middle of the field in this. Both corners are going to be dropping into deep thirds of the field each. And then you've got blitzes from the strong side linebacker and actually the free safety here. This concept here, it's an overload. You're going to try to overload the offensive lineman. Assuming they have 5, you're going to bring 6 and hope to get a guy free. If they counter this, though, and they pick up that blitz, it can be a problem because you don't have a lot of coverage behind you, even though you do have a 3 deep shell. Back to the top here, this is just a man blitz coverage. So in this particular coverage situation, and there's a lot of plays in the man blitz era, you're playing man coverage with no cover shell over you at all. So everybody's got a man. You're also bringing a lot of pressure. And in this particular situation, you're bringing it out of a 3-4 defense. This is what we kind of talked about earlier about that 3-4 defense. You've got 3 defensive linemen instead. And then you've got your linebackers, both your inside linebackers are coming. And then it looks like, I can't tell if this is out of a nickel or a dime. Doesn't give me enough information to know. This may actually be out of a dime situation. And so those may be corners that are actually coming, which would be faster players. But the main concept here is you've got man defense, and then you're going to be playing, you're going to be sending pressure because you do not have that help over the top that you would expect out of a cover 2. This is a good example, though, of taking cover 2, Tampa 2 defense, and then mixing up your coverages so that you're not predictable, so that the quarterback can't just, pick you apart as you go. So this has been our cover 2 tutorial. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. If you have, please subscribe. Please smash that like button. Please leave comments. I would love to hear from you about what you like or dislike. I would also love to hear from you about what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future. Otherwise, we will see you next time.
Jerk Routes Football.